Welcome to the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm Joy LiBethe, one of your Dharma leaders, and it's great to see all of our Zoom friends and all of you who have made it here in person. It's really good to be back here in person, even though I can't have my pajama bottoms on. I have a blankie on my lap, but it really does feel good to be here. So I'm going to start by asking a question, and I want you to raise your hand, whether you're on Zoom or here in the group. What do you think the Buddhist first talk was on? Was it the Four Noble Truths? Eightfold Path? How about the three characteristics of existence? Permanence, suffering, and not suffering. Okay, how about mindfulness meditation? No? Okay, how about generosity? Okay, well, if you've raised your hand on generosity, you're right. Generosity is the foundation of Buddhist spirituality. Whenever the Buddha would go into a new town, his first talk would be on generosity. So why was that? Well, one reason is because without the generosity of his followers, he couldn't continue to travel and teach. He needed food and clothing and finances. So that was one of the reasons. And then another more fundamental reason is that generosity is really at the heart of all of the teachings. At the basis of the Buddha Dharma is sila, or ethics. An important act of generosity on this path involves Buddhism's 5 precepts. So by giving up killing and stealing and false speech and sexual misconduct and intoxicants, one gives, and this is quoting the Buddha, one gives to immeasurable beings freedom from fear, hostility, and oppression. What a gift if everyone in the world could give each other that gift. So can we approach our lives in the spirit of generosity and with the intent to benefit all beings and do no harm to them? True giving isn't obligatory passion, will, desire someone else's well-being or happiness. The definition is it's opening the heart and allowing the mind to let go. So when we feel unhappy or fearful or inadequate, we can get stingy, we can hold on tight. Generosity is something that loosens us up by offering whatever we can, a kind word of encouragement, a smile, a small gift, an offer to help. We're coming out of our tight, encapsulated self and connecting with others. I remember Jack Kornfield saying, never squelch a generous thought. The Brahma Viharas, which are the divine abodes that the Buddha recommends us be in one of those mind spaces at all times. Metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, appreciative joy, and upekkha, equanimity. So loving kindness and compassion, the first 2 of those, they aren't really logical. They're basically generous and spacious. So how do we know if we're generous? Can we give without wanting the gift to be accepted or used in a certain way? Have we really let it go? Maybe our heart is open and sees the needs of others, but our mind blocks the act of generosity. Maybe we have scarcity thinking. One small act of giving can have enormous repercussions in an interconnected world. No one can measure the effects of a single act of giving. In Buddhism, true giving involves the awareness that there's no giver, no gift, and no receiver. The Dzogchen teacher Zenji once said, in giving, the mind transforms the gift, and the gift transforms the mind. In a profoundly independent world, generosity is fundamental to the entire economy of life, with all people, among each other, with everything, air, between the trees and us. There's always the giving and taking. It's a pebble in the stream of universal consciousness. Everything is an exchange. We are all dependent on each other. Everything leans. So what are some of the reasons to be generous? Well, the Buddha said, before giving, the mind of the giver is happy. While giving, the mind of the giver is made peaceful, and having given, the mind of the giver is uplifted. Gandhi shared, the fragrance always remains on the hand that gives the rose. You know, giving offers the possibility of purifying and transforming greed, clinging, and self-centeredness, and the fear of suffering. So act generously or with compassion without expectation of any gain can give us confidence in the existence of a deeper goodness, which sometimes is hard to see in the world these days. In our culture, we can't understand times that your greatness is not what you have, but it's what you give. Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And he said, as I know the benefits of generosity. So maybe we think we're generous and sometimes maybe we don't. So how do we develop generosity? Remember, find it as opening the heart and allowing the mind to let go. Perhaps generosity is more about how we are than what we do. Buddha said, what is important is not the gift itself, but the intention and the attitude of the giver. I love the quote in the Way of the Bodhisattva, which I'm deeply into a 10-month immersion in now. And it says in verse 21, if with kindly generosity, one merely has the wish to soothe the aching heads of other beings, such merit knows no bound. We need to practice and develop because our underlying tendency is to attach and to cling. And confusion or aversion stops selfless acts of generosity. Ayakima says, on the spiritual path, there's nothing to get and everything to get rid of. I want to read you a quote by Robert Thurman. It's Houston Smith's introduction to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Practice giving things away, not just things that you don't care about, but things you do like. Remember, it's not the size of a gift, it is the quality and the amount of mental attachment you overcome that counts. So don't bankrupt yourself on a momentary positive impulse only to get it later. Give thought to giving. Give small things carefully and observe the mental processes going along with the act of releasing the little things you liked. I started a number of years back. We were in the Caribbean and I had these painted parrot earrings, long dangling earrings. And a woman said to me, oh, I love your earrings. My daughter collects different parrot things. And where did you get them? I'd love to get them for her. And I said, well, I got them back in the States. You wouldn't be able to get them. And so I thought, well, so I took them off and I said, here, give them to her. She said, oh, you sure? I said, yeah. And it felt so good. I decided from then on, anytime anyone said they really liked my earrings, I'd give them to them. And it's really been a wonderful thing doing that. You know, when we think of giving, we often first think of material possessions or of money. I was in Israel a number of years back and I wanted to go to a ballet and it was a matinee and I walked to where the ballet was and I got in line to buy my ticket and their system went down. So they couldn't take credit cards or debit cards or checks or anything. And I didn't have enough cash to pay for the ballet. And the woman selling the ticket said, well, I'll tell you what, you go, I'll pay for it. And then you watch the ballet and then you go to the bank and get the money and come back and pay me. I never knew this woman. I mean, it was just such an extraordinary gesture. And then on that same line, it's just as meaningful to me. My grandson likes Chick-fil-A. And, you know, if you ever see those lines at Chick-fil-A, sometimes there's like two people around the block and they have kids with the iPads out there taking your order. So my car was in line with cars behind me at Chick-fil-A. And he came out with his iPad and I leaned over to get my wallet out of my purse and I saw I'd forgotten my wallet. So I said to him, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot my wallet and I've got to get out of this line. And he said, well, I have $7. If what you want is more than $7, I'll pay for it. So this was just a young man in the Chick-fil-A line and just really, really moving. You know, we talk about dana here in the Sangha and dana refers to the donation itself, which doesn't have to be money, but is also refers to the act of giving. So one way that we can really give people is a gift of time. Time to be mindful with someone, to be truly present with another being. I think I mentioned this one other time in a Dharma talk, but I used to be on an aviation incident response team. And I responded to a plane crash that was in Guam at the US base there. It was a KAL, Korean Airlines. Over 300 people were killed. And so I flew over there to help with the mental health of the people. KAL flew in about 300 family members of the deceased, and we were all at a hotel room in Guam. And most of the people did not speak English. And if you work with people, it's hard enough when someone is grieving and in shock about this, when you speak their language, very difficult if it's through an interpreter. Most of the people were very angry with the US because the plane crashed on this base. It was a commercial airline, crashed on the US base. And they felt that the military didn't get to the plane quick enough, that they didn't put out the fire quick enough. And so they were grieving and they were angry, and they were blaming the US and taking it out on the US. They went on a hunger strike in the airport. So they were pretty angry when we got there. And we felt so limited in what we could do for these people, not knowing the language. So most of the time we just sat with them. We talked with them. If they knew English, we sat with them. About a week later, when people were going home, every one of them came to me and the small group of us that there were and thanked us. And they said, and we felt like we hadn't done anything for them. And they said, you were always there for us. You were present day and night. You sat there with us. We will never forget this. We have completely changed our mind about Americans. And so it was just that presence of being there with them and how meaningful that was. So if we can let go of self-absorption and give full attention to others, it's so easy when we're talking to someone on the phone to text or multitask or do other things. So, we have to look at, are we emotionally frugal or too self-absorbed or too busy or too envious? Gibran says, you give but little when you give of your possessions. It's when you give of yourself that you truly give. And Simone de Beauvoir says, that's what I consider true generosity. You give your all, and yet you always feel as if it cost you nothing. Makes me think of the biggest thing that we can give up is our ego. Remember, letting go mind is a radical act of generosity. Our spiritual perfections, the paramis, our generosity is considered the first of those. So one other act of generosity is forgiveness. What a gift. And the most benefit is to yourself, whether you're forgiving another or yourself. Service. Once a person had awakened, the Buddha often instructed them to go out and benefit others by being of service. Service is an act of generosity on this path. I love, Martin Luther King said such wonderful things, but I love, this is one of my favorite quotes of his. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Someone asked Gandhi, why do you give so much? Why do you serve all these people? Does it make you feel vulnerable? He said, I answered, I don't give to anyone. I do it all for myself. So the benefit of our dana practice is two. We give to help others and we give to free ourselves. Receiving generosity yourself is important because then you are really allowing a person into yourself. It is opening the heart. So maybe you need to allow someone else to practice generosity toward you. That's getting out of yourself. And giving gifts to yourself of compassion and loving kindness by doing metta or tonglen for yourself. There are daily practices that you can do to increase generosity. Start in small ways. Give a little frequently. Loving kindness for those you appreciate. Show your gratitude. I gave a Dharma talk one time on how gratitude and generosity seem to be flip sides of the same coin. When you're feeling tight and stingy and your heart's closing and it's clinging, introduce spaciousness into your meditation or your thoughts. Look at the sky. Look at the ocean. Look at the vastness. Think of all the earth gives to us. Both gratitude and generosity softens the heart. Feel the blessings all around when you broaden your vision. So maybe take a single day and offer respect, full attention, goodwill, simple politeness, a smile, Pay it forward. I used to love it when I drove to Baltimore so that I could pay for the person in the Baltimore tunnel behind me. It was so much fun to do that. Take another one's point of view. That's a generous offering. Tara Brach does a teaching on breathing, on letting ourselves be touched by the beauty and the goodness to others in our world, and sensing our mutual belonging and our offering ourselves. So breathing is like gratitude. Breathing out is like generosity. So you take it in as you breathe with this sense of gratitude in each breath and an intention to express generosity with each out breath. Think of a person who's been generous to you, a benefactor. Say thank you. Let them know they're appreciated. Go to someone in the next week whom you love and haven't shared on a level you could. You know what I'm talking about. It's Valentine's Day soon. What a better time to open your heart to someone that you've just been waiting for some reason to do so. You can consciously offer, mindfully, everything you do and say. That becomes a universal act of generosity. So some of you may know that I founded IMC Charlotte, our Sangha, and it was because Jack Cornfield, in a private interview at Yucca Valley, told me I should teach and begin a Sangha in Charlotte. I didn't even know anyone with whom to meditate when he said that to me. But because I had respect for him, I did it. And what a gift he gave me, the inspiration and the confidence to birth the Sangha. You're all here today because of the generosity of all the people who helped to make this happen. Alexis, who donated the space for us first to meet. Melissa Pope, my Pilates instructor, who, when we outgrew the space that Alexis provided, let us use her yoga room for a number of years. And through the generosity of those who taught the Dharma for us in the early days, including Lindsay Bridges and Ruth King, Ward, who came to teach and brought organizational knowledge and structure to our group, Clyde, Debbie, and Alexis, who still support us, and our new leaders, Thea and Larry, and maybe one day soon, I hope Denise. So when I began, the Dharma leader had to open up themselves. You had to unlock the door. We were over at the Pilates place. You had to set up all the chairs. You had to put out any announcements. You had to greet the people. Oh, it was before you gave your Dharma talk. And then soon we got coordinators and greeters, and we were so grateful. We knew with our growth, we needed more volunteers for the committee and for the board. So many people stepped up to the plate in those years on our committees and on our boards. So this all began in 2009. And now I think mostly because of the pandemic and not meeting in person, our need for volunteers is again great as it was in those early days. We have wonderful volunteers now, devoted, dedicated to the Sangha, wanting to share and show their gratitude for the fellowship and the Dharma. If you've benefited from being a part of this Sangha, please consider showing your gratitude by volunteering. There are so many opportunities, and you will get so much back in exchange. I'm deeply grateful that I could give and receive and be an intimate part of the flow and exchange of the blessings of the Sangha. As we really experience the interconnectedness of life, how can we not be grateful and be generous? We're only temporary caretakers of all that is provided. Essentially, we own nothing. That's an integral part of Native American spirituality, which I love. Eventually, we can come to realize the emptiness of all, and that there's no getting, possessing, and giving, just spaciousness that allows all things to remain in the natural flow and exchange. With this sense of gratitude, receiving each moment of our lives, just this is right, that just this is enough. And I want to close this evening some words Uncle Jackson wrote after 9/11, and what I feel personally toward all of you. His words were, "What have I got that I can give? to love and to teach you, to hold and to need you. What have I got that I can give to love and to teach you? Thank you.